Orks once again proving to be the funnest and one of the most flexible factions in all of 40K. Welcome to WAAAGH Wednesday. Whoa, we have the stats, the facts, and of course the honorable mentions to show the true diversity that Orks really have within the codex when it comes to detachments, which is one of the actual contentions I constantly see within the community. So I'm open to talk about that, of course, as it's fun. And then, of course, we do actually have tips for the list we're going to cover this week because the old ways are best. So with top player coverage to talk about how the hunt went big. And shout out to the chat. What's up, everybody? Whoa, everybody's talking about, well, do we have the hunt? Is it really true? And let's get into the stats and the facts real quick. Wall to everyone, to the chat, to the gits that are here live, of course. Shout out to Stats Uber, where we're showing all the stats right now are coming from. Ork sitting at a 48.8. We'll just round up to 49. And GW is at least worth pretty much 50% win rate, right? That's how they'll look at us, which is considered the Goldilocks zone. But when we're looking at the actual player base, 335 players overall, 191 of those being War Horde. Roughly, that's about 68%, 67% of the player base playing War Horde. Yet, when we look at our honorable mentions in the actual top performing list, we still see diversity in the Ork codex itself, which is something that many other factions can simply not say. So let's go through some of these because, interestingly enough, the win rate themselves are pretty similar to each other, hence the actual average. But also, there's a couple of these lower tier factions that you would detachments you would consider that still had some good performances and fun stuff we're going to talk about. So if you disagree with me and you think, well, Orks are too restrictive or they need to do this or we see the same data sheets, that's fine. Let me know. And then if you also agree with me that we actually have mobility and flexibility in our detachments, also let me know because I like to get this going. I want to see where Orks are at because though I do think we're relatively in a good spot, especially compared to where we used to be, there is room for improvement, but then there's still good stuff to be grateful for in a realistic way, right? Yeah, also things we would want to see in a realistic way. So I'm open to both. Trust me. We well balanced around here. You get. So speaking of the Orks, we have the Green Tide, the actual most standout detachments, like Statubert saying right up here himself that he's pointing out the Green Tide being the best detachment, and that's been rising. So it started at like 32. I'm not even kidding. It was sitting at like 32 or 28% win rate at one point for the Green Tide, and it's slowly been just bumping up every single weekend going out. Though we don't have really that many like top performing lists with it, and I do think most of these are in teams, and I don't generally go over too many teams event. Though, like I said, to rewatch gang, you guys let me know. I'll put enough comments for the rewatch on something, and I'll go back to and give it a peep. But for singles, right, Green Tide hasn't necessarily found its spot, even though in Worlds it had the best representation for actual like how many people brought it to how good they were doing. And shout out to the chat right now for the gets going them putting up the win rate in the chat. So 25 players, but 52% win rate. So shout out to those guys. I love those people. And yeah, there's some legends that are playing them in singles and still doing great. Then we have War Horde, which is, like I said, by far the majority, but sitting right at 50%, which they've still been doing consistently. Though it's interesting, right? A lot of people like to say, well, this is the peak potential of Orks. You do this right, you could be just about anybody, all this such. And though there's a lot of validity to that, there's not really results to show that we're actually winning the events. What seems to be the issue with this style is a lot of the time the ability to do it 5 times in a row throughout events or greater, right? 6 times, 8 times. It's just really not something people are leaning into, though. So if you're playing RTTs or you're just filling up your army, I think the fact where War Horde's sitting at is perfectly balanced and average where GW wants it to be. Though I do think as people look at it from the outside and they like to put War Horde up there and the top of top list, sometimes I would say that when it comes to actual reliability of performing at an event really consistently, it seems like the peak War Horde archetypes just don't do it, though they are having the majority of the player base. I just find it interesting. I think it might be also the strats and such that are really appealing there. Then we have Bully Boyz, always like right there, top 2 or 3 of the most popular detachments, common for teams currently, though we have some good representation from singles this weekend, and we can actually shout them out in the honorable mentions. Who doesn't like a good second wall, which you end up failing with the damage, which gets Gaz brings that back for you. So I'm pretty much seeing every single Bully Boyz list incorporate gas, which in my opinion is obvious because the main thing Bully Boyz list was missing was the damage. The strats are pretty terrible, not ability to throttle, and gas helps swing that. So shout out to the Bully Boyz. More Dakka. You crazy gets out here. You are the weird boys out there, running around 3 players, 47% win rate. Shout out to the gets that I know some of these weirdos that are out here in the Discord too, but they're able to get it done. Interestingly enough, I think though there is some comparison to the lack of restriction on this detachment, I also think that as people don't know what the heck you're doing and you're still doing the Orky thing. So I think that's pretty cool. People are still somehow able to pull this off, though I don't think it would be something you would take to a large event. The Hunt still finding their way always at the bottom 2 most represented, right? Least popular detachment because of how restricted it is, how you're forced into playing these units that are sometimes just seen to be better in other detachments. Yet the Hunt is one of the lists that we're going to cover this weekend that someone was able to go 5-0 with the good old fashioned The Hunt list with pigs and rigs. So the people who stay consistent with this attachment seem to find a way. The delivery is a little different. The durability is a little different. But nonetheless, it's still doing the Ork thing. Shout out to the Hunt players. We have Cult of Speed. Still in the background, Shadows lost some steam, as I would say steam is in the performances at events. Still good representation of players playing it, but it's not really standing out like it was before. There's just so much allure to the core codex itself. If you ask me, right, you can ask me one day, do you want to play Cult of Speed? Sure. Do you want to play Dreadmob? Sure. Do you want to play Green Tide? Probably. Do you want to play War Horde? Yeah. What about Bully Boyz? Yeah, that's a good idea too. Every detachment, it can be looked at and conceived of like, well, I'm down to play that. Right in the background, someone's going to say, well, the Tactical Brigade, Mark Perry's going to come out of nowhere, but Tactical Brigade, raw tactics, bring the Morgan on. I'm going to bring, maybe that's a good idea too. Like it's just, it starts to kind of stack on that. So it's pretty, see someone in chat, what about the Def Copters? And then immediately my head goes, yeah, that's good too. Right, I'm with you on that, and that's something that I want to share with you. The excitement that I think that people need to look at. Though I'm totally with the Ork community as a whole, saying that there is still room for some improvement and still room, at least just some points, some point tweaks, and we would feel really good. Not that we want to be overpowered or anything. But shout out to Call to Speed. Then we have Tactical Brigade, still waiting for them to actually pull through on the results. Though I think just trying to play the elite game in this meta is just kind of hard and not necessarily what Orks want to be doing. So Tactical Brigade, 44% win rate, though still a good representation of 20 players. Pretty consistent week in and week out. Not shading on anybody who's doing it. I just think where the points are at and the meta's at once, I can see why there would be a struggle. And then we go to Dread Mob, the memeish, the silly, the stompa, the WAAAGH or lack of WAAAGH is what people like to talk about with Dread Mob coming at a 42% win rate. Though we do have some fun lists that we're going to shut out in the honorable mentions that people are going to be able to look at that actually do incorporate some walkers or do incorporate some Dakka. So if you guys want to look at that, of course, let me know. But I for sure have love in Dread Mob. So if you ever want to play the Dread Mob style, look through the playlist. Definitely fun to do. But playlist, the Dread Mob held us up when we were at our lowest. So I don't shade on the detachment for doing so poorly now. I think people are just having a good time with it and just trying to figure things out. So with that being said, live chat, let's hear what the chat's saying right now too. As we move to the honorable mentions. As I mentioned, I do have the list picked out that I want to put up for that I wanted to talk over. I do have a list from the player himself, so that's going to be nice for if we go through his path to victory. But if you're here live or rewatch gang with honorable mentions, you vote. Now you build it up. We're going to put up the actual voting tier list, and then you're going to pick after I go over the list. I'll see who actually performs at the top of this voting. So let me know, live chat, what's up. And so we have Hunter Spakes with his War Horde list at the Show Me Showdown, Jeff Poole with War Horde at the Cali Cup with his 6-2 War Horde list. We have Tony with his 5-3 Dread Mob list. It does in fact have a Stompa. And then we also at the Cali Cup, and then we have Bjorn Olsen with another Dread Mob list going 4-1, and we have Rudy Fresnan with Bully Boyz going 5-1. So shout out to the Bully Boyz. Again, we still have the diversity, not to mention we have the Hunt that we can talk about. So simply in these honorable mentions, Though I understand they didn't go undefeated, and I understand they didn't win, they didn't only take one loss. Some of these guys, if you go to an event, you're going 6-2, you're going to pretty much feel like you had a successful event. For the vast majority of players who are looking to play these oddball, skewed detachments, or people that are even trying to play the archetypal or War Horde list, you still want to see at least 6 to 7 wins out of your event. So you would still consider this something to be considered when you're going forward as your list. And this is what we want to show, is the diversity in our orc strength. So of course, be sure to do the vote. And of course, if you're part of the rewatch gang, make sure you leave a comment and let us know. And then people make sure that vote's going up for the most part. And then let me know if I'm a little slow on that to the chat. But with that being said, anything I want to let me see. Look at the live chat. I see someone left a comment before we go into the video. I picked the bottom detachment each slate to win. Whoa! you're like, let me just play on hard mode. So shout out to that murder blood mouth for 18 membership, 18-month membership chat. Then we have Julio with the member. Woo! What's up? You get whoa! So make sure you watch that. We have the action reports coming out. I'm a little slow on that, guys. Sorry, that's totally my fault. But they'll be coming out much faster, and I want to actually have fun with that, which is why I like to show diversity. So in after action reports, I'll definitely be doing that based off what you guys got to say. So of course, be sure to put the vote up as we move into the get of the evening, where we have Cody Clapton and his The Big Hunt with going 5-0. Let's go at the Radicon GT. So this was actually a 120 person event. For anybody that was wondering, because sometimes we hear, well, it was a 10-person event. Well, this one was not. 118 people, excuse me, in Australia, because Australia, Ratcon, get it, ha ha. So he didn't end up winning the event. No shame in that. Still got good scores, but did go undefeated here. Totally normal. Some people go, "What? He didn't win." It's okay. That's just how it goes sometimes. But it's still excellent. Great job for going 5-0. And like I said, we actually do have notes from this gets and some questions. I try to get in the head of these gets and talk answer questions that I think you guys would have. So let's get into this list real quick. We have done 2 beast bosses. Of course, as you can see, no enhancements on these beast bosses. He was pretty tight on points as it is. So he didn't end up wasn't able to pick that, which is interesting because I almost picked this detachment for that enhancement. Sometimes proper killing, right? I'm like, I need that 3 beast boss. 3 damage, please. So then he goes to a beast boss on Squigosaur with his only enhancement, which was surely as a Squigoth. Now, I did ask him, why didn't you have the scouting enhancement so that you can get stuck in faster? That's typically Glory Hog style. People end up bringing that in. But he didn't, because he pretty much came down the points. Again, like we said, if you're playing to hunt, you already know that detachment's tight on what its points are. You aren't going to really be able to change too much up. And that's what happened with him, is he had a plan, he had a goal, and he was like, well, I just couldn't. And he even said after it, well, I actually think it's better. And once he actually played through the event with it, he said it was kind of addicting to have the built-in -1 to hit. So I mean -1 to wound. Excuse me. Why did I say -1 to wound? So he seemed to like it better, even though in the past, historically, I would say that was probably the most common enhancement brought was Glory Hogs, and I would say surely as a Squigoth more brought as an afterthought. So with that being said, let's move on. So he also had a Boss Snickrat. Now, for the points of Boss Snickrat, he's exceptional now, where we want him to be. Though he does take some patience. Make sure you guys don't end up throwing him away too early. But especially on this very elite kind of style of orc list where you're pretty thick, heavy, everything's trying to get stuck in and fight. Boss Snickrat would feel exceptional here, but you do got to be conservative with him. For the most part. Then we have a Mazrog Scragbag. Though he is a shadow of his former self, he still feels pretty good. He has for the most part, he's fun. I would say he feels better in armies like demons, where he doesn't care about their armor saves as much as the Marine matchup, but he can still end up getting some good crumps in and interesting fights on death. Now, he, of course, both of these mounted characters go along 2 big bricks of Squig Hog Boys, 2 10-man units of beast bosses, 4 of those Sorry, 2 10-man units of Beast Snaggle Boys for those beast bosses to ride inside of those kill rigs. Then we have a 10-man boys unit just simply there to sticky objectives to get fight around, maybe even throw a grenade here and there. Love the boys. He said, and I did ask him when he was going out with the boys, he said he would pretty much sticky the home objective and then stick them inside of the Gorkana, from what I remember when I was talking to him. Sorry, we were talking back and forth. I'm making sure I got that. But yeah, that's pretty much what he said with that, which I love. I love that. And that's how it should go, right? Just, on there, boys, jump out. There we go. He said Gork was, yeah, okay. Making sure I read that correctly. But make sure I'm going too fast. Then we have, no, that's it. No one Gretchen unit. That's also why I say you can be conservative with your boss Snicker. Some people forget that you can just leave them in your backfield to help screen while everything goes forward, and then you just pick them up, put them somewhere else. So it's not even about he cares about the scouting from the Zod. He doesn't have a Zod. He doesn't have a Glory Hog. So it's not like he's really even going for the scouting potential. He's like, oh, whatever. I'll just play for the scouts. I think Snickrat's there exclusively for points, not even for the infiltration type screening stuff. And he didn't give me any indications that he cared about that either. One of the big things he said that was interesting about the hunt is that people really not understanding what the hunt does. And since everybody just looked at the snagger list and just assumed it really wasn't that intimidating, they didn't respect it enough, even though he would go over and go over his list and talk it out to the opponent. I think people just understanding that they've been nerfed. They hear all the kind of rumors about how underrated they are. You're playing that off weird niche detachment. You're not War Horde. You don't have gas. It's like, oh, whatever. Whatever you're playing, dude. I don't care. I'm going to run you over. But he said for the most part, he felt like people were all underrated. Underestimated him. And the list was interestingly a bit more durable than everybody was expected and hitting a bit harder than everybody expected. So let's get into his actual path to victory, where he let us know what was kind of, some things here and there, what was going on with what he did with these wins, and his MVP list of his list and such, and some changes he would have going forward. Of course, he might be in chat. I'm pretty sure he is. So, of course, chat, make sure you guys got some questions. You can let it be known. Let's look at Cody's actual path to victory. The first game he goes into was probably his hardest game, as he goes into Space Wolves Gladius Task Force. One of what people consider one of the more interesting versions of Space Wolves and Space Marines as a whole currently, right? So we have Bjorn the Fell-Handed, of course, giving you the nice CP, himself innately pretty durable as well. Then we have Lieutenant with combi weapon for that nice infill, that scoring potential. Logan Grimnar with his new data sheet, way more killy, way more impactful to the game, making you spend more CP. Typically going to go with the 5-man unit Terminators. That's what's on this list. Then we have a Ragnar Blackmane. Definitely very killy. Think of him kind of like your Ork war boss, but fighting as a character the whole time. And he, I believe he, based off what I understood, he was in one of those Blood Taker units. Then we have a Wolfguard Battle Leader with Honor Vehement. We have a 10-man unit of Blood Claws, a unit of 5 Intercessors, an Impulsor, 1 Jump Pack Intercessor, 2 Gladiator Lancers, 1 Big Brick of Thunderwolf Cavalry, 3 units of Head Takers, 1 big unit, followed by 2 minimum size unit of Head Takers. And he did pay for the Wolves on one of these lists, on one of those units, one of those 3-man units, followed by, like I said, 5-man unit Terminator. So it wasn't really as many units as I would say Space Marines would typically want. Now, what he was thinking immediately, I'll just tell you his thoughts first going into it. He said this was round 1. It was Purge the Foe and Crucible of Battle. He said this list because I had 5 characters and the vehicles I had, he had plenty of things to pick up, and seeing this very much as a melee on melee matchup. Lancers aren't necessarily reliable even into a kill rig. In my opinion, you just put 1 shot in the kill. Let's say you put 1 wound through, because that's kind of reliable what's going to happen with them. Unless you're Oath, then you're going to just take some feel no pains. You'll be at half potential and you'll still go disembark your stuff going forward. So he's seen this as a straight up middle kind of fighting. He said Ultimately, turn 1, he prey targeted his enemy's transport, turn 1, that had the most valuable units in it. And so the enemy didn't end up staging it in his proper positioning early. So turn 1, our boy just staged up here with his gits. And then turn 2, he made a big wall, just threw full send everything because it was a melee matchup, and picked up 5 of these Space Wolves units on that go turn. And he pretty much ended the game by turn 3. But I did have to ask him questions because I was like, well, was there any more to that? And he said, well, I said, what happened to Logan Grimnar? He said, well, I crumped the loud Arabiki, right? So on screen, we have a picture here where he actually ended up getting the Morkanot into Logan Grimnar and actually killing him later throughout the game. So he was getting stuck in. Yeah, I had he had sent me this picture. I had to put it in, so it was fun to see. Because yeah, he for the most part he was very aggressive with the Gorkanot. Every game, he said, if it wasn't the kill rig being thrown out first to take up all the damage, then it was the Gorkanot. If you really think about this early game staging and pressure that you could put on with this army, you go, well, here's double bricks of pigs. Then you also have, which one's built in minus on the wound. Then you have 2 kill rigs and you have a Gorkanot. All of this is coming at you, even if you are a Space Marine with Oath and you're shooting at me with Lancers, whatever. Everything else can stage up on you quite aggressively. If you missile anything into me, then everything can respond because now you're right in front of my face. I might have some interesting heroics. I might have some interesting out of WAAAGH ability to advance and charge because of the hunt itself, having the ability to advance and charge in the strat. So it's like that's a lot of pressure staging up. So if they have no shooting, they can't necessarily disrespect you because you have a little bit from your kill rigs, you have a little bit from your Gorkanot, and then the bomb squigs themselves. So if the enemy just stands right in front of you, you're like, oh, I'll pick up whatever you put there and damage it. So then as you stage up defensively to try to, you're like, fine, I just put everything in your face to smash into you. And even though this was what would be considered a Space Wolf, we're going to punch you Gladius, respectable list as a whole, it just wasn't able to meet that damage line once he really was able to break their back and make contact with the enemy. So I thought that was pretty awesome because at first I go, man, these lists are just not my style, being so hyper elite as an Ork list. But when you think about how is the enemy going to allocate its damage, you know, and once they get close enough to you, you're just going to smash into them, even with if it's one unit outside of the wall or with the full wall. And then one of these pig units can still fall back and charge and smash into you again because of the hunt stratagems. So I was like, okay, this is, and you'll see this pattern as we talk about how he played his list. Is what I noticed is this list was really much I bonk you in the face. I get really just start crumping, but it was calculated with how he assessed his risk. So let's move into his second game. What am I going here? Too much stuff going on, and our gets in chat right here, right? Let's go into his second game. So, first game, so he ends up winning that purge one, 68 points there. Like he said, he was really going for just a spine-crushing blow more than playing the game of like, we'll trade units and points. He's like, I'm just going to crush him on the wall turn. So game 2, he goes into Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Wrath of the Rock. So we have, I think he's right here. Cody, what's up? Whoa, what's good you get? He said proper fight. So he has Azrael, Chaplain and Terminator armor with Deathwing Assault, Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, Lionel Johnson and the Tech Marine. We have 2 5-man units of Intercessors, 1 Ballistic Dreadnought, 3 units of Deathwing Knights, a 10-man unit of Stern Guard, and a 5-man unit of Jump Packs. This is very much this is gonna be a big meat on big meat challenge. Wait, that sounds funny. Let's look at what he has to say. I messed that up. So let's look at what he had to say about this matchup and the mission. It was take and hold, search and destroy. Ooh, good old basics. Just get stuck in, right? Nose to nose on this one. He said plenty of characters on this list for him to target. Let's see what you guys are looking at. Oh, sorry. He said plenty of gets for this guy to target. But he said there's really not much to say here because not enough guns to necessarily have to respect them with what he had. The Stern Guard, it's like, okay, they might be able to do something on that one turn, but from there, it's like he said, he said, I pretty much avoided being charged on the movement phase. The guy misdeployed the Lion, So he was able to charge him and some Deathwing Knights on turn 1 and end up killing the lion. Oh, then turn 1 to try to kill him, to try and kill the lion, excuse me. It made the lion focus on killing the beast boss on Squigosaur unit on his turn, allowing our boy Cody to just stage up and take primary with everything else. And then on the following turn, which was turn 2, he was able to wall make full contact. So the enemy was so focused on where the enemy he could end up being, and because it was taking hold and search and destroy, the enemy is very linear with his attack pattern as well. If he gives up too much ground, he's not going to be able to stop in a deep strike or any interesting ingresses. So he has to stage up good enough for his slow units to, make it to the mid table and kind of start getting stuck into a fight. And ultimately, he was able to make contact with his beast boss on Squigosaur into the Deathwing Knights and into the lion. Seemed to be killing one of those Deathwing Knights and causing the lion to be stuck there. Everybody else was able to move up and stage up and start getting those fights in. And that's what I'm saying is he when he's breaking it down, I'm like, well, how would you even break this down more? He's like, no, that's really just what's happened in some of these games, because you can see these people are very elite, these armies that we're going into. So once they commit, that's all they have left. And once the wall turn happens, everybody's getting stuck in. There's nothing else to be said. So just holding down and locking down the line wherever he wanted the engagement to be, and just scoring up all the points while they're fighting to the death, ended up going his way. Somewhat interestingly enough, right? And you're really happy in this game. I've had it, in my opinion, right? You don't appreciate the hunt until you're just running into a bunch of 2-up armor saves army, and you're like, all right, well, this unit that actually has a character leading it, I can actually get additional AP here. I get to fall back and charge. I get to advance and charge outside of the wall, so I can keep you at risk and keep you at range. But you don't necessarily just get to tumble right into me. So 89-point win there. Great job by that one. Then he goes into his third game, which was a mirror of Ork the Bully Boyz. So we have a Bully Boyz versus the Hunt. Interestingly enough, I've seen this on the channel. This is the most popular mirror for some reason that I've seen on the channel, is the Hunt versus Bully Boyz. Like more than Bully Boyz versus War Horde, anything like that. I seem to always catch the Hunt versus Bully Boyz. So we have, and he said right here in chat, whoa, another Ork player. So great job to this Ork player as well for the Bully Boyz, showing Greenskin some love. So we have Bosnick Rock, Gazgul, Thraka, double war bosses, and then double war bosses of Mega Armor, one with the teleporter. So we have one truck, one battle wagon, 2 10-man or 11-man units of Gretchen, a commando unit, 1 Mega Knob with twin kill saws. Looks like Gaz's unit because it's 6 of them, maybe. I believe so. And then 2 5-man units of Mega Knobs. Oh no, this is Gaz's unit for sure, right? No, I guess I'm not sure. I can read the chat. Sorry. So we have one with 5 power claws, and then the other one with 5 twin kill saws. 2 5-man units of knobs for those war bosses, and then 3 5-man units of Storm Boys. Nice to see. Now, surprisingly enough, as I've seen this in the past, the Mega Knobs do have a good chance in this fight, right? Because the Mega Knobs, if they have their WAAAGH, they have feel no pains. They have good armor saves. They're going to be wounding the Squighog Boys very reliably. If they don't have their WAAAGH from their 5-up invulns, and they just start taking straight damage straight through. So it's actually a pretty good fight whenever these guys get matched up on each other. And it gets in chat. What's up, Mark in chat? He said, no, the teleporter had the 6 and Gas was with the 5 claws. Okay, he was with the 5 claws. Yeah, because he can give him +1 to wound. Surprised it wasn't a claw and a power saw, but that's cool. And then the 6 were actually with the kill saw. Now, as for how this list was described, which was one of the fun ones when we were talking about it, he said round 3, this was tipping point, scorched earth. He said 6 characters, 2 vehicles. He said this was a tricky one. Everybody hates the mirror sometimes with Orks. It's because it's almost like 2 glass cannons hitting each other. Once one gets a chunk of flesh out of the other one, and it can go downhill real quick. So very chaotic and fun kind of games. He said he had 2 walls on me, which gave him the ability, a little bit of a hesitation. But ultimately, turn 1, he was able to kill the infiltrating commandos off the center objectives. And he ended up putting his kill rig out on the objective. So our Bully Boyz player put the commandos out. In response, Cody was able to go out, kill him with commandos with the kill rig, and this acted as bait intentionally. So Cody was like, well, I'm going to put this kill rig out forward to hopefully cause gas to come into him. As we've spoken about before, the thing Bully Boyz lacks is that enough significant damage. And it might be that he felt, I just want to take the ground in the middle, try to soak up some of his damage with Gaz's unit, fight back, and then let the rest of my army hit you. Not sure why he was like, I want to take out the rig with Gaz, but it might be because he's the only unit that can reliably have a chance to do it, right? Once the kill rig's up, sometimes he could just tank a lot of damage. So he ended up taking Gaz, running straight into the kill rig, and in response, Cody was like, cool, both cavalry units came out and the Gorkanaut, cleaning up the Gaz units and the Mega Knobs that were around it. The second wall didn't have enough punch behind it once Gaz was picked up and the other units that had come out for turn one wall. So it was actually pretty awesome to see. And he said just in that case, once he took Gaz off the table, there wasn't enough damage left over, right? You have 5-man knobs unit that are trying to punch around and deal with some of the squigs in the end. You still have the Gorkanaut that can soak up a lot of this damage from these units that the knobs have no answer to, and the Mega Knobs don't have enough volume to reliably one punch out. So once he was able to get Gaz to come out and both pig units to respond to help pick him up, pick him as the old hunt target to actually take him to their 4-up saves and push the damage through, that ended up being worth it. So great job there. Happy to see there was a good game. And then we move on to his next game, which was his game 4. Let me put this up over here, guys. Which was the Astra Militarum Mechanized Assault Force. So we have Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar Leontis, 1 Rogodorn Commander, Sly Marbo, and a Tech Priest Engine Seer. 10-man unit of Cadian Shock, Double Chimera, 1 Kazarkin Squad, triple Okran, 1 as the big 6-man unit with the Ripper guns. Not a bad unit. The Ripper guns they're a good multi-phase unit, so they can clean up orcs pretty reliably. I wouldn't say Squig Hog Boys, but the rest of the orc units they can do pretty well. And then 2 more minimum size units. Then we have a Rogodorn Commander, a Scout Sentinel, and then a Storm Lance. So you would think, well, that's weird. Remember, he's already, this is round 4. He's already 3-0 at this chance. So this Stormlance was out here doing work in a real kind of way. So let's look at what he actually has to say about this matchup, because you normally wouldn't think a Stormlance is too much of a worry if you're an orc player. You're like, not enough activations, whatever. But if you're running a bunch of pigs and big units that are banking on their durability, that might be a concern. So on round 4, he has Crucible of Battle, Hidden Supplies. He said, I was pretty nervous for this one because the Stormlance and the terrain had some pretty good firing lanes. He said, I originally decided I was going to saturate everything I could and protect his mounted units. But after the enemy scouted his Chimeras up and some Sentinels, he said he was able to disembark with a unit of Snaggers from the kill rig on the line and prey charge the Chimera, killing it and consolidating into the Sentinel, the Stormlance, and the Sentinel, and then holding them in position for 2 turns. He was free to wall on turn 2 and then pin them on their deployment zone. So that ended up going his way. Again, like I said, something that nobody is actually expecting from Orks is I can advance and charge outside of the wall. Now, they expect it from kill rigs, but you're like, I don't care if your buggy advances and charges on me. Dude, that thing sucks. But in the hunt, you actually can. And because of when the stratagem is being used, you don't have to wait, have a unit disembarked. For example, like if you want to use Here We Go on a unit in Orks, right? In your War Horde detachment. Well, that unit has to be on the table, can't be within a transport, but that one's even bigger, which is the stratagem that is used in the charge phase for the hunt, allows you to actually declare an advance in charge or a fallback in charge. So that's fantastic, and it's declared in the charge phase. So unit gets out of transports, boom, advancing and charging. Absolutely love that it's used in the charge phase instead, and just catching everybody else off charge. So jailed that git, which we love to see when people can jail that git and start touching stuff, right? Taking advantage of the consolidation, the pylons. That's exactly how you do it. That's a big deal with this detachment, especially when you go, well, I can fall back and still hit you after I bad touch you, especially if I can get multiple units to touch you as one, which is why there's this thickness redundancy, because it's like, are you going to call this stuff? Because one of these things is going to fall back and keep hitting you at least. So great job there. And then we go into his, and he ended up getting a 93-point win there. And then we go into his final game. What do you guys think the final game is going to be? Unironically enough, surprise, happy for this Ork It. It's the biggest and the best of Dobikis. We got the Imperial Knights. So who doesn't like to see some of these big mech boys on the other side of the field when you have your hunt list out? So he said, I was pretty excited for this one. He said, I was excited. He said, I was really happy. He added that really in there. I was really happy about getting Knights that last round because my army's a killing machine, army. He's a little nervous about those 3 damage autocannons, right? So Knights did get a little bit of that glow up on that. So we have a Knight Defender for 435. We have a Knight Warden and then a Midastorm Priest. We have 4 Arbinger Helvrans, followed by 4 Warglaves. So this is a bit more, I'd say this is a pretty standard Imperial Knight list where it's at 2 bigs and a lot of littles. Quite efficient where they're going now with their books. So I'm pretty excited about that. To see that they're like at least in a balance spot. But our git was worried about their 3 damage profile autocannons, which is true. We will get saves to them, but dang, they are quite voluminous. So it's tipping point and lich pin. He said it was a spearhead arms, by the way. He said he had prayed that the big knight the turn 1, so the enemy would hold it back and threat saturated the board. Both his both his kill rigs and his riders stuck them on the line, and when the enemy shot at them, both lived of those actual rider units. But the Beast Boss and Squiggle Sword unit ended up getting harder than Maz did. So from there, he just wad right into the front line, picked up 2 big knights and about 3 or 4 of the small ones. By the end of round 3, he had pretty much won the game at that point. So it's one of those things, guys, where sometimes people overcomplicate what strategy am I going to take knowing my enemy can impose their will on me with these big knights? Well, it might be you understanding the timing of when you impose your will, having enough understanding of the enemy, the situation you're in, and your own army's durability, the skew you lead into. Though it is off meta, understanding that most people aren't bringing the weird profiles to deal with all of these toughnesses where anything they bring is taking great saves, feel no pains, and even if you half damage the unit to its half potential, it's still going to crump you and follow down on the field. So it's just a saturation thing going on here. Weird niche, weird list. He ended up pulling a 90, I think it was a 97-point win there on that one. 97-point win on that one for the final round to end it at 5-0 with that git. So I do actually have follow-up questions that I had asked him about things overall. He said everyone had kind of compared them to Wraiths a little bit for the most part. They're not as durable in the same sense that they regen, but how much attention they take made them feel as durable. But they definitely hit harder than the Wraiths in that sense. Like we said, the fact that they can actually fall back in charge, in my opinion, what makes them so appealing, and the additional IP appealing in this detachment. Otherwise, they fall kind of flat currently, even in War Horde. And remember, they still have like pseudo War Horde access on their prey target. He says, he said the list being reasonably self-sufficient, all the units can kind of work on their own. No one necessarily is rewiring CP, or he has enough redundancy in the units that he cares about to where if one gets crippled, he can continue the game plan with another. He liked to stage and kind of rage bait the enemy with kill rigs. If he had to, he can use the the Gorkanaut for it. Ultimately, whatever bait he puts out there is what helps bring himself into the enemy's deployment zone or closer to it. And he said really the Gorkanaut was a lot of distraction sponges for the most part. Always sticking his home objective with the boys on the Gorks, having the rigs mounted, all the characters, Grouts to hold as objectives, and Snickrot for screening and secondaries. His MVP were the Squig Rider units. Hard to say which was better, whether it was the Beast Boss and Squigosaur or Maz, but he said the Beast Boss felt better into shooting matchups, and Maz was probably better for the fighting matchup because fight on death. He said ultimately he thinks that he could take out the Gork and Boys for another Kill Rig and Beast Boss combo and Beast Snaggle Boy combo. Ultimately, he's going to another event and he'll be tinkering with this list. So, whoa, let's go. You get people always hating and saying that I'm talking out of my arse. Sorry, this is Australia. Arse. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm in it for the fun, right? For the most part. There, of course, we want results like Cody did. But if you play your list enough and you really build into that niche and that list that you want to play and you understand the matchups, a lot of this does take understanding of your opponent's armies. Mind you, when he went into these game plans, because he understood the enemy's abilities, capabilities, how that the army wants to play at the tempo of the game, the interesting units to go after, how much the enemy could actually withstand, he was able to make the right calls early in the game. So it's not even just about, oh, well, his potential was he was probably an excellent player, burning down the enemy for 4 turns, outmaneuvering them. Or he was just some crazy git that lined up on the line, understood how much damage the enemy could actually dish out at threat range, and just said, it's not enough, and then got stuck in. And I think that's something that people constantly overlook when they're thinking, well, I want to play my flavor list, but I just get killed. You might be underestimating your own flavor list. You might be hiding all of your own army behind the terrain in positions that they can never actually threat saturate the opponent. You leave one pig unit, Glory Hog, to go up the field. It gets annihilated before anything else can stage up and support it. And then you wonder why your weird to hunt list didn't work. Well, in this case, he actually was less cunning than you thought in the way that he just put it on the line and said, come get it. Come throw hands. Give him off my teeth out. And it ended up working for him. So even though it was actually a lot of 4-game knowledge, it was a lot of understanding of the right times to make the call, it was all about whoa for Cody. And this list actually got me quite excited because he kind of disproved even this late into the edition, this late into meta, that you can play with all of these tools and these gets and these bits. And really just sit back and say, hey, I understand that I'm going to have some hard matchups. I might have some games where I just have to throw it on the line and let the dice roll out. But ultimately, I can get results with what I feel like playing. And our flexibility and diversity and detachment is really what makes Orks fun right now. So shout out to Cody, and thank you for reaching out to me, and so that we can get the note. So of course, if you're a git that gets stuck in and you want to reach out to me and let us all know how you did or how some of the notes to path to victory, it'll be great. And Cody said pigs are most important, need to keep them alive. We don't need the movement, in my opinion. Bait with the rigs, bounce what they use to kill the rigs. That's practically the scout. So he's saying he doesn't need the glory hog, right? He said he just feels like he's already in position. Mind you, this git is someone who also said he stays right up on the line. So when he's saying he doesn't need the movement, it's because some matchups he's already right there in your face saying, well, I'm just going to move 12 anyways and charge you. So what's up? So I love that. And I think people should just be encouraged to just be diverse, because even if you don't go 5-0 at an event, you can still have great fun games. So now it's time for the vote. So let's see what's going on with the votes here. So of course, if you haven't got it in, this is the last chance to get your votes in as we talk about what Ork lists performed this weekend. In 5, 4, shout out to the guys that are in the chat. 3, 2, 1. And the poll now, guys. What's up, live chat? And of course, not surprised, we got the Bully Boyz love. Yes, Bully Boyz still able to find their way even in the darkest hour. So Bully Boyz with the 40% on the poll. What's up, Palisade? Whoa, for becoming a chat member. I love that, dude. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support. It means a lot. Very generous and loving of you. But yeah, our get here. How Bully Boyz always win it feels like Bully Boyz always win the vote. So Rudy, we're gonna go into Rudy's 5-1 Bully Boyz list. What's up, live chat? You guys just love Bully Boyz, just like the stats say. Stats always say they're the second most popular detachment, and then whenever we do these votes, it's like almost always gonna be a Bully Boyz list if I give the chat a chance, which is cool with me. I mean, I like Bully Boyz. Who doesn't like being like, whoa, I can wall 2 times. When I remember when that dropped, guys, and I did the leaks video, which then people were like, well, that's weird, you do leak videos. And I was like, there's going to be 2 walls. People were like, you're lying. That's a fake leak. Now it's all we want to talk about, right? So let's take a look at Rudy's. And of course, Rewatch Gang, any of these things you want to see, let us know. Shout out to everybody here who performed real well. Proud of you, Gits. And let's take a look at Rudy Fresnan's 5-1, the Bully Boyz. So let's take a look at this list. We have Bully Boyz 25. I feel like he's been tweaking this forever just based off how the list name reads out. And he has 10 free points, right? So some people in chat, if you see this later and leave a comment, I'm 10 points free. Intentionally. Right? Some people really do make their list and are 10 points short and they're like, whatever. Or they just don't write it in the BCP correctly. That happens too. So we have Beast Boss with Edge Stopper, a Gazgul Thraka, followed by a Pain Boy, War Boss, and Mega Armor, and then a War Boss and Mega Armor with the Teleporter. Big deal on this attachment. Unlike War Horde, you almost exclusively see the Pain Boy. Because you don't get Here We Go, because you don't get Following Me Lads, it becomes a no-brainer. And of course, you're saturating the Feel No Pains on this list. So we have a 20-man unit of snaggers. Yes! Whoa! Let's go. Rudy remembers. Rudy remembers the index hammer time. What I mean by that is this is where you go, okay, you have a demon, you have a Catan, you have anything that's taken up 4 up armor save to all this. Oh, you about to get crumped. But not to mention, it's like another unit of boys, but you're not paying for another character. You still get the feel no pain. You get pit with strength toughness. A lot of benefits to 20-man unit of boys. Snagger boys that we used to see often when Necrons were annoying, and it's slowly just fallen off. And I even in other videos, we'll talk about when I talk about changes. I do think this has some real merit, but on Bully Boyz is where it kind of was more interesting to me. Giving them 2 turns of 5 up invul. Okay, I see you're cooking here. And then we have the 20-man unit of boys. Of course, that's for Gazgul. Followed by double battle wagons with the Death Rollers, Labas cannons, Wrecking Art Case on both of them. That means you can put one of those 20 Snagger boys into one of these rigs, wagons, excuse me. The Gaz unit does not go in one of these. Okay. Then we have Def Copter units, 2 3-mans for the points. For the points. And when everything else is on this list is already looking like toughness 6, stuff has feel no pains, you're gonna have wagons, they're gonna take armor saves and anti-tank guns. These Def Coppers don't just fall over like the Storm Boys would, not getting in the way like some bikers would, and then they got a little bit of rockets on them. So I'm feeling this. I'm feeling it. A little bit of mortal wound potential. All right, Def Copters finding their way onto the list finally. I like that. 2 5-man units of flash kits to get involved, throw some Dakka downfield, early exchanges and skirmishes, point for point, one of my favorite units in our codex for sure. 2 11-man units of Gretchen for that full backstage screening, and then 2 units of Meganobs with twin kill saws on both of them. That's what I'm talking about. We need that AP on that. Of course, people always wonder, well, the kill saws worth it when I'm hitting on 4s. Just think about how reliably you're wounding. You may only get 10 hits, but you are very likely to get 10 wounds as well, AP -3. For the Mega Knob. So I'm into them, but there's some matchups they feel much worse than others, right? There's just sometimes when you're like, I need more punches. I need more punches. So nice to see a bunch of feel no pains on those lists. You got armor saves, you got invulns. Mind you, one of these Mega Knob units is going to go on a wagon, the one that doesn't have teleporter, and then both 5-man units of flash kits are going to go on the other wagon, right? So you're going to have stage centralized, 2 wagons on each side. One's going to have 20 snaggers, one's going to have Mega Knobs and 5 flash kits, for example, and then cross that. And then, of course, like you said in chat, talking about right now, you have access to reroll hits, which is access for the Mega Knob, so they don't feel as bad. That was like the only damage that you could reliably get from this enhancement as well. I mean, from this detachment before. A little bit of shooting and such like that also allows Ed Stopper to be activated for this big 20-man unit when it finally gets in that fight. So let's talk about his actual path to victory. So he did quite well. Ended up taking a loss not until turn round 4, which is awesome. So let's take a look at this real quick. I don't have notes. Let's just look at what he actually got stuck into, right? So game 1, Chaos Demons. Yeah. I know Chaos Demon player was sweating when he understood. Wait, what? You got lethals and reroll hits? Oh, on those Snagger boys, right? So we have Kairos Fate Weaver, Changelings, Demon Prince with wings, the triple Flux Master. That's hilarious. And then Lord changes 2 of them. We have 1 unit of Pink Horrors, Plague Bearers for that sticky, Burning Chariot, triple Screamers, and then Zeech Soul Grinder. So as I've played this, it's really just all about the big demons have to come out to play and interact with your snaggers, with your wagons. They have to come out to try to deal with your thick assets when it is time for that to go. These little, pinks, plague bearers are more just to bog you down and hold you up. And in this case, they sometimes end up being more like leapfrogs, where you're just okay, I'm going to charge them, and then I'm going to bring in the next wave after that. So when you have, like I said, you have Gaz, his lethal aura, typically you're like, okay, no brainer, makes the boys awesome. But for the snaggers, because you get to re-roll the hit rolls, now all of these snaggers are just putting a dumb amount of wounds into all these greater demons or any of these monster vehicle type units that they get reroll hits off. So 89-point win there, big smashing, big crumping, getting stuck in there, had all the tools to deal with that matchup. But going into, right, because they don't even have, I guess they do have some guns because Fate Weaver, but not enough to like reliably pop a wagon. So then we go into the second matchup, which was again against the Alpha Legion. Well, he just called himself that, but really it was Raven Guard, Shadow Mark Town. So the new big bads on the block got the teeth knocked out. So we have Argos Shah, we had Captain with Jump Pack, Shrike, and a Lieutenant Kami weapon. 5-man units of Intercessor, triple Assault Intercessors with Jump Packs as 5-man units. 1 big brick of Centurion Devastator squads. 1 big brick of Inceptors with Plasma, followed by 2 3-man units of Inceptors with Plasma and Infiltrator, and then 2 big 10-man units of Vanguard Veterans. This is very much about, well, you have the 1 Century gun that can, pop my wagons. Other than that, I'm just going to full send aggressively at you. Now, you can't expose your gas unit to get charged outside of the 1 shot. But there is very much about, I just have to get up the field and start closing the distance on you, because they don't have enough, activations in combat besides that 1 Vanguard, these 2 Vanguard units, to really try to bulwark and stop you. And the more that they throw these forward, the more kind of leapfrogs you have to close the distance on them. So this is very much we're just going to get stuck in and start going blow for blow on this one. Which I think people don't think of this necessarily as a bad matchup. Like for Raven, that people don't think of this as a bad matchup for Raven Guard for the most part, but now in hindsight that we've actually seen this army kind of play out as in the Raven Guard itself, we know that pressure is the way of the game, right? So when you're going into them, so great job right there. I think Bully Boyz really does have the tools for it now. 74-point win, so it was the slowest one, right? You're going to take a lot of damage trying to close that distance and having to get them to fights and pull out their assets, but you're going to trade bodies for points, and that was a great way to take that. So good you win there. Then we go into his third game, which was against the Salamanders. Another good one. What detachment was this? Forge Fire Seekers. All right. So we have Adrax Agatone, Vulcan Heastan. Then we have 5-man Intercessors, an Aggressor squad with Flamestorm Gauntlets, a 5-man unit of Jump Packs, 1 6-man unit of Blade Guard Veteran, most likely going with Adrax, I believe it usually is, and then a Eradicator brick, followed by an Incursor, another 10-man unit of Infernus Marines, an Infiltrator squad, another Infiltrator squad, a Scout, and then a Land Raider Redeemer, double Land Raider Redeemers. Okay. Very unique on this, with this flame style Forge Fathers detachment coming from the Salamanders. But this is, I have to get close to you for you to deliver your damage, right? 86-point win there. Now, what do I mean by that is when you do play into the Salamanders list, they don't have that long range, I'm going to get your respect. So you can very much get on the line with this army and say, okay, we're going to go for blow. When you get close enough to me and you try to deliver your damage, I'm just going to full send into you, and we're going to find out how much your power armor and your damage holds up to these kids as I hit you with waves and waves of this. I think Gas is a real backbreaker here, because sometimes they just say, hey, come get this Land Raider, And if you're like, well, I got all these dudes that want smoke with that Land Raider, I don't even mind. We'll put the Snaggers here, over there. We'll put the Gaz here, and you choose which one more reliably gets crumbed. Because I also have the Mega Knobs that can go over there and assist that unit of Snagger Boys, so it can get pretty wild right away. Because they're gonna have to pop the wagons to even interact with the killy bits. Mind you can get flash kits to come out, so they're interacting with the early trades. Flash kits are great skirmishers. And then you have the Coptas. So all of this is going to require them to get more frisky than they want, just like those Eradicators. So great job there, 86-point win. And then we go into his loss, which came in round 4, which was against a different version of the Raven Guard Shadowmark Talon. So in this card, this guy was like, well, I need a monster at 5 hours. So this guy's crumped on caffeine. So we have Sean, we have a captain and jump pack, Shrike, and then a combi weapon, very similar. 1 intercessor squad followed by 2 jump pack intercessors, 1 centurion brick followed by 2 of the assault bolter interceptors, and then a big 6-man unit of inceptors. A 5-man unit of inceptor and cursors, followed by 2 10-man units of Vanguard jump pack. So pretty much the same squad. Different mission, different layout, looked at different circumstances. I'm sure a little bit of the difference, maybe a little bit of these assault bolters, because they have popping sustain too. Maybe there's a chance they popped off and burned away more boys and such than you can see. I think it just came down to a situation of mission, order of activations, the layout. If these Centurions can pull line of sight and pop all your wagons at will, disembark you and kill you, it can really cause you to get in fights where you're not on objectives, get the initiative on you, it can end up pulling you apart. So I ended up losing that one. It happens. Would like to know what happened. So Rudy, let us know if you ever see this. But he came back strong in the next game, which is game 5, where he ended up taking a 100-point W there, going into the Thousand Suns, where it was Magnus the Red and his Gits. Which detachment was this? Oh, Grand Coven. There we go. So we have Magnus the Red, a Demon Prince of Zechan Wings, Exalted Sorcerer on disc, and then a Sorcerer. 2 units of 5 Rubrics with the Warp Flamers, 2 10 units of Zangors, Amelia's Vortex Beast, double Vindicators, and then triple of the Shaw Robots. I do think this does happen if you can get off on the right foot, go first, depending on the deployment as well. You can really put these guys for a loop. They don't have a lot of assets for the kind of pressure Orks can deliver on them. If they start getting some early charges off, I'd love to see that. And you're pretty much tempting them. Well, pop my wagon. You pop one, the other one's coming out. These Vindicators have pretty low range. So once they do, they're usually just going for one target. Not easy, but clearly Rudy understood the assignment and got a 100-point win there. All about just picking up all their assets, so they got nothing left but Magnus to kill you with, huh? And then we into his final game, where he goes into the World Eaters. So we have, what detachment was this? Berserker Warband. So Karn the Betrayer, sorry. Demon Prince of Corn, Master of Executions, Berserker Glaive, and then a Slaughterbound. 2 of the 10-man units of Zerkers, a basic 3-man unit bound, followed by 2 minimum size unit of Exalted A-bound, 2 10-man Jackals, 2 minimum size unit of Chaos Bonds, 2 Forge Fiends, and Rhinos. Personally, whenever we with this interaction, it's about you do have just a little bit more stuff to put out and actually get them to try to get in, like try to commit to. For example, now they do have a lot of these little mislead type units, like these little chaos bombs. They're going to run up and try to get stuck in your grill early. If you do have infiltrators, great, good way to keep them out. If not, be in positions where you can maybe heroic and clean them up in other out of phase activations. They can be kind of annoying in that way. Typically, though, Orks in the how toughness you are and how many points, how many units you have, is enough to kind of swing this difference. Now, you do have to look out for this Khorne Zerker brick with Karn the Betrayer, because he has the ability to essentially cleave through any of these units with enough, if he gets the initiative enough with the full potential, he gets like sustain, additional strengths. Karn himself can go off and fight a lot. But Rui's list was able to pull it out in the end with a 85-point win there, with his double big breaks of mobs, but we had the Beast Snagga Boys making their appearance, which is pretty uncommon this late into the edition. With double wagons, double Coptas, double 5-man unit of flash kits, double grots, and then 2 Mega Knob units with twin kill saws. Again, I think the Mega Knob units also felt pretty good whenever we played the World Eaters matchup too. They can, take a good chunk of flesh out of them if they get a charge off with their most elite units, like like I just said, Karn, or maybe they're slaughter bound. But other than that, you're kind of just like, okay, well, the rest of your units don't want me to charge into them and touch them, and if I charge them, they don't get their charge buffs, and things start to go downhill from there for them. They're not using their strats in the same way. So it's very much about if we can get the initiative on them, and because they can't disembark our wagons, it becomes interesting in that way. World Eaters don't come out on that matchup, sadly, in this case at least. So shout out to Rudy and his Bully Boyz list. Absolutely love to see it. Love the tech of an additional mob of stuff, right? So a lot of the time we were seeing in this meta, well, people were bringing Gas plus maybe a Zod, or Gas plus another 20-man unit of boys with the Pain Boy, Gas plus a bunch of these little elite mislead type units. I found this to be a good in between, where picking the Snagga Boys are a more elite, quote unquote elite version of Battle Line or basic mob, but you're taking a deduction on cost because you're not paying for the additional characters, but you're getting the benefit of still having Feel No Pains, still being slightly more killy because of your strength threshold, and then having another buff that can actually stack off Yaz's buff that he's giving out, that typically your other boy unit is just like, all right, if I roll 6s, it feels good. In this case, Snaggers are like, all right, other matchups, I can make this work. If it's demons, if it's Necrons, I have stuff that I can kind of tech into. If it's a diminished unit into a low, low wound demon engine, for example, I can make this still work throughout the game. So I was really happy to see that Bully Boyz finding its way into singles and actually making some of a breakthrough. So happy to see that. Like always, leave a like if we did good, and subscribe. Keep the WAAAGH energy going out here. What I will say is, I'm not trying to, hype you guys up with like false advertisement as much. I do find the Ork Codex to be quite exciting, even though we do have some of the most, copy and paste style of units. Sometimes people are like, well, War Boss is brought everywhere. That's kind of boring. Well, who doesn't want a War Boss on a wall, right? It's some of these things I find them to be acceptable cases of redundant units, but in other ways I do find a lot of fun to play all these other detachments. So after extra importance, I'll show you that, right? I'm gonna just play every detachment. I'm tired of trying to make it to the meta. At this point, I'm like, I'm just gonna play all the detachments and just let you guys see for yourself, because that's what I find to be most appealing about being an Ork player and playing with our codex currently is, yeah, we're not at the top and we're not winning the events, which I understand for the get to want to win events. That's frustrating. That's why I do think we can use a little bit of buffs here, because where we're at right now, we're a little bit too linear and too obvious when we're trying to make it to those end tables. But for anybody else who's trying to get games, get stuck in, have nice, respectable records, so many detachments can get you there in style of play. And I think we see that demonstrated week in and week out here. So for the most part, be happy as an Ork player, because you seeing this means in the next edition, when we're hopefully the protagonist, quote unquote protagonist, we still get this kind of at least reflection and diversity, and their ability to play detachments flexibly, because that's the one thing I hear locally as well. It's pretty nice is when people play with me, they're like, hey, you're kind of playing a lot of different detachments for that one faction, the only faction you're ever playing. It's pretty cool to see you can play a bunch of different detachments. Sometimes they see me come in, they're like, let me look in your box. What you got? Is it a War Horde? Called the speed. They do it again. What you got in that box? Killer cans. What the you got in that box? Kill rigs. Why is there a pain boss in there? Right? It's just, I love doing that kind of stuff. That's why we're on this channel though going, right? That's why we got this channel going, like chat saying, whoa, that's exactly why we're out here, because that's the fun part about 40K. So there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we'll not get T-foul. Whoa.